Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Ask DeFranco's Gym. Today is part 2 of my top 12 book reviews in honor of the 12-year anniversary of DeFranco's Gym. Yesterday I gave you my top 6 most practical training books. Today we're covering my top 6 most practical business books. Again, these are practical books that I've actually read. Very easy to read, readable, and have had an impact on my career and my business. They aren't just these big novels that sit on your shelf and make you look smart, but you actually never even opened them up. So I'm going to start with number 1. It's got to be the E-Myth for me. Hands down, the blueprint for the steps that it takes to run a business. And this is a kind of a funny story. This is the first business book I ever read, and I read it because it was a punishment from my old boss, Bill Parisi. I guess I was being a bad boy. I don't remember the specifics, but I didn't follow the rules, or I didn't do something I was supposed to do, and it was a disagreement between me and Bill having to do with something we were promoting with the juice bar or something, and I was the quintessential technician. All I cared about was training, getting results, and he was the entrepreneur. He's the businessman, the business owner. And, I think he wanted me to see things from his perspective as the guy that was paying the bills. And as a punishment, he made me read this. And I remember thinking, I'll skim over the first couple pages and then I'll skim over the last chapter. And just in case he quizzes me on it, I'll pretend like I read it. But I sat down, I started reading it, and I remember finding it very interesting. And I actually read it cover to cover. And here we are 18 years later. I've had a successful business for 12 years, and I could tell you this book nails it. It absolutely nails it. So I'm going to start with just a quick review. I'll try to make it quick. The big thing here is it explains what an entrepreneurial seizure is, which is that time. I'll use personal training as an example because a lot of people watching this are probably in that business. The time where you think, man, I'm the best trainer in this gym. I'm more knowledgeable than anybody else. The boss is never here. I know more than him about training. I should just open up my own gym. And that is a fatal assumption to make, because just because you know the technical work of a business doesn't mean you could run a business that offers that technical work. So in other words, just because you're a great personal trainer and you know about exercise physiology and you could help anybody, burn fat and gain muscle or become more athletic, does not mean you could own and operate your own gym. Just because you bake the best damn chocolate chip cookies in your family doesn't mean you could own and operate a bakery. And that is very important to know. And, a lot of people, that's how their business gets started. They go through that seizure, so to speak. And the E-Myth takes you through, it walks you through step by step the life of a business. And they talk about its infancy, its adolescence, and if you make it that far, the maturity of a business, the growing pains in between, the difference between a technician, a manager, and an entrepreneur. Not everybody is suited to be all three of those. You want to know where you fit in, and that is going to be a huge help for you. It also talks about, running your business as if you were going to franchise it. Even if you have no desire to franchise your business, using a franchise prototype, and they take you through what that is, developing systems from day one, will help you run a much smoother, more successful business. And with that being said, it talks a lot about the difference between working in your business and on your business. And if you don't know the difference, you should definitely get the E-Myth. So this is the blueprint. Highly recommended. Thanking my old boss, Bill Parisi. Now that I'm an old man, I get it. Number 1 on the list. Already? Dehydrated. Talk too much. Number 2, Crush It. The reason why I talk so much about this stuff is because I'm passionate about my business. Crush It. Cash In on Your Passion by Gary Vaynerchuk. Yes, Gary Vaynerchuk. Now, this book I only read a couple weeks ago, maybe, but I loved it. I think I started reading it was like 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. Next thing I know, it's 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, and I read the whole thing. That's how much I liked it. I banged it out in one sitting, and I could vouch for this book being 100% true. For the day and age we live in right now, the world of the internet, this is your blueprint. Man, it was right on point. They nailed it. And starting with cashing in on your passion. He talks about determine what is your passion. What do you love to do? What do you love to talk about? If you have a job that sucks and you're miserable and all you do is look forward to the weekends, what are you doing on the weekends that makes you so happy? Whatever that is, make that your business. Make that your career. And you could do that easier than ever this day and age because of this little thing called the internet that we have. And if you're not familiar with how to use the internet, or you don't think you're tech savvy, this is where this book takes you step by step through it. And like I said, I could vouch for it because it was pretty cool to see. I lived this book. And I'm sure I'm probably not as smart as Gary or as well thought out from a business standpoint, but I could read this and tell you that it is dead on. Everything he's saying is 100% true, coming from a guy that's not that smart, but made my passion my career. And after you define that passion, he teaches you how. Start a website or a blog, get on social media, whatever it may be, Twitter, Facebook, and create your own kind of personal brand. Have a voice. You don't have to kind of be, if you had a job and they don't let you have a voice and you got to kind of just, whatever the company says, that's what I say. No, once you do this, you're ready to go out on your own and be your own person. And that content is what's huge, what he talks about. Just post stuff, write articles, but if it's got to be stuff you're passionate about and knowledgeable about. Keep giving more content, and eventually, you'll start to be able to monetize on it. And if I would have read that 10 years ago, I would have been like, that's bullshit. Like, I'm just gonna keep writing articles and answering questions online, and an invisible man from the sky is gonna give me money. Like, how does that work? But he talks about, if you do this, you'll notice opportunities are gonna start to arise because we've kind of shrunk the world with the internet. There's so many eyeballs on what you're putting out there. If it's good, you're going to get that email of somebody offering you to pay you to write an article for their site or for a magazine, or maybe you get a book deal if you're a real good writer. Maybe somebody asks you to go speak at a seminar or a conference, or in our case, in the personal training world, people read about your training philosophies and they call you up, they want to start training with you. And in my personal case, that's how we got the Strong documentary. The documentary done about me in the gym a couple years ago was done because the producer saw our YouTube videos, and he saw my Ask Joe blog that I started in 2003 on DeFranco'straining.com. He thought the gym was interesting. We had a documentary shot about our gym. Once that documentary came out, we started to get this global following. We started having people from all over the world fly in to train with us. I started writing a lot for print magazines, online magazines, consulting. We started putting out DVDs, offers to be on different TV shows. It really did happen. And, I'm not saying that to impress you of all the things I've done, but I want to impress upon you that exactly what he talks about doing in here, I did it. And the things that he said were going to happen actually happened to me. So I can't say enough about this book. I really think it is. It's an easy read. It's a fun read. And I feel like it is the business model for the world we live in today, 2015. This is the one. If these two kind of got together and made it and had little Crush It E-Myth babies, this is your master's level course. For those watching this that want to follow in my footsteps, not be like me, but the business model of having a physical gym and then also having an online presence where you sell DVDs or write ebooks. It's similar to how I do it, but do it in your own style, in your own way, in your own voice. These two, master's level course. Save the $100,000 on going to college. Spend a couple bucks on these two and you're good to go. So those are the top two. Now I want to get into the second book I ever read was Raving Fans. Super easy read. So easy that I remember being a couple pages into this book and actually feeling childish and stupid. I'm like, I'm not gonna read this. It's written in a parable style, like story style for children, but it's genius in that it's so simple. Once I got into it, I think once I hit like the page 20 or so, and I started getting, oh, okay, they're telling these kind of kid stories because there's a lesson in the stories, and there's a lot of principles to be learned about. It's a book about customer service and creating raving fans, and the way it's written makes it super easy for you to understand how to create raving fans in your business. They talk about people are so used to bad customer service that even if you're just average, people are kind of satisfied. But if you're like me, I'm not satisfied with just having a pretty good gym. I don't want people to say, yeah, I went to DeFranco's, it was pretty good, I liked it. You want raving fans. If you want to be successful, if you want to have a booming business, if you want to make money, you want people raving about your business. And you know, I always tried to do that with DeFranco's. I didn't want it to be your average gym, you know, and that's why I do things like, you know, from the jerseys on the wall and the atmosphere of the gym to some of the crazy things we do, like the rules we have for changing the radio or changing the iPod. You know, you have to bench press 350 pounds or squat 500 pounds or be a pro athlete. And I don't do that to be a dick to younger kids or, you know, new guys or new athletes that come into the gym, but it's just something that's a little different. It creates conversation. It's fun. It's motivating. They go home. They tell their friends. They tell their family about it. And you know, we got a buzz. And I truly think that if you talk to 95% of athletes that have come through the DeFranco's gym program, I think we have, you know, 95% raving fans as opposed to people that are just kind of like, oh yeah, that was a pretty good gym. So great, easy read. Couldn't agree more with it. That's on the list. Next up, Essentialism. I was turned on to this book by Jay Ferrugia. I was the epitome of a non-essentialist. And what that means is I was one of these guys that thought everything was important. I have to do everything. I'm always super busy, got a million things going on. And this book was all about the disciplined pursuit of less. And if you notice a lot of the changes you've seen in my business, I've done over the past couple months, this book was a major influence in the final kick in the ass I needed to put more of my attention on less things. And it talks about, one of the early chapters in this book is the unimportance of practically everything. And you need to read the book to see what it means, but one of the quotes I love is, the reason why a lot of people get stuck, their business is doing good and you kind of get stuck in that rut and you can't get over the hump, is because the owners, the CEOs, they are unable to distinguish the trivial many from the vital few. And I love that quote. You need to be able to distinguish the trivial many, all the noise, all the BS, from the vital few things. And you know, it goes back to like the 80-20 rule in business, where, you know, they say 80% of your business or 80% of your, you know, your profit, your income probably comes from about 20% of the things you do. So focus, put 80 to 90%, 95% focus on those 20% of the things that are giving you your highest return, and you will be successful. And that's basically what this book is all about, kind of cutting the fat, getting rid of the noise, so to speak, and just focusing more on less. And that's what I'm doing in this upcoming year. You're going to see some of the things I'm doing in this smaller, lesser facility, but it's going to be a lot better than, you know, what you've seen from me and the content I've provided in the past. So big influence right here. Essentialism. Shout out to Ferrugia for the recommendation. Next up, Starbucks Experience. The reason I bought this years ago, and the reason why, it always intrigued me that a friggin' coffee shop can overprice their coffee, you know, charge $4 or $5 for a cup of coffee, yet the place is packed and has a cult following, has raving fans. That always intrigued me. When I saw a book that said 5 principles for turning ordinary into extraordinary, I knew I needed to read it because I always loved the backstory of how something came about. You know, we all just know Starbucks as this, you know, just beast in the industry, one of the most recognizable brands in general. And when you think they sell coffee, but what you'll learn in this book and what they got is that selling coffee, there's an art to selling coffee, an art to selling anything, and it's more than just about the coffee bean. You know, the art of Starbucks and why they are successful is because they get it. It's not about the coffee bean. It's about the entire experience. And from the ambiance in there, the music that's playing, the lighting, the shape of the counter, the font on the menu board, all that stuff. They talk about paying, you know, every detail matters, and they pay attention to all that stuff. And they've created this whole experience. It's not a cup of coffee. It's a whole experience to the point where more people, more college and high school kids go to study and hang out at Starbucks than they do the library. How many big business meetings? I bet there's been more big business meetings go down at Starbucks than these big corporate rooms, these boardrooms. And it's because they created this unbelievable experience. They have a loyal following of raving fans, and they've taken something ordinary and made it extraordinary. And I've always tried to do that again with the gym. I don't think you'd ever put DeFranco's gym in the same pack with you know, General Globo gym like every other gym. There's so many things about DeFranco's that is so unique and different, and I'd like to think of it almost as a Starbucks of the training world, in the sense that we've turned something very ordinary, a gym, into what I think is extraordinary. So Starbucks Experience is definitely worth your read. And last, but certainly not least, my man, even though I never met him, E.T. Eric Thomas, the hip-hop preacher, The Secret to Success. And most of you probably know E.T. He's the guy on YouTube that did the video, if you want to succeed as bad as you want to breathe, then you will be successful. I'd like to think I'm one of his early disciples. I saw that video before it became real viral and everybody knew about it. I remember watching that, and man, it gave me goosebumps. I watched it over and over. Had it on the iPod. You'd be training to it, and the dude just blew up. And it's very cool to see his story again. And this is like an exception to the rule, you might say, because it's not a business book, but it's on my list of top business books because, you know, it's the story of a guy who just, through hard work and determination, went from nothing and succeeded to be, in my opinion, the best motivational speaker in the world. He went from nothing to being the best in the world. And if you can't apply, and he gives a ton of principles throughout the book on how he did it, and more life principles, but you could certainly apply them to business, to your relationships, and just a super motivating story. Knowing where he is now, what he's become, it made the story even more motivating for me and more interesting. So I highly recommend it. It's more of an autobiography, but again, the principles in here, if you are an aspiring business owner, entrepreneur, or if you're a freaking human being, you need to read this book, man. And super motivating guy, the real deal. I've trained a number of NFL athletes that were fortunate enough to be on teams that he spoke for, and they all said he's not just an internet sensation. The dude's the real deal. And so I'd love to hear him speak someday. But that rounds out my top 6. Hope you enjoyed that. Top 6 most practical business books. In my opinion, they've all had a huge impact on my business and my life. If you're watching this video on my blog, I'll have links to all these books so you know where to go and get them. Don't just go and get them. Read them. Apply them to your life. And let's make 2015 the best year yet. Thanks, guys.